everybody, First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. It is a miserably cold and wet night across the Carolinas, and we're starting to get our first reports of some of that ice showing up in Upper Burke County, Caldwell County, and Watauga, as well as Avery and Jefferson County. Let's get right to Ashe County up near Jefferson. Let's get right to what's going on out there right now. This is the winter storm warning and the winter weather advisory. You can see it's in effect for most of our mountain counties and most of the foothills through tomorrow afternoon, about 1 o'clock. That's when we expect most of the freezing rain to come to an end. Now, on top of that, the rain is going to be an issue as well. We've got the flood watch up across the area. But what I've been watching are the temperatures, and I'm going to show you temperatures up in the mountains real quickly here. We've been starting to see some of the temperatures, especially on the eastern facing slopes, starting to dip below that magic number of 32 degrees. Now, what's interesting is when you see some of these reports and it says 32, it doesn't mean it's necessarily at freezing, because these round up or down to the nearest whole number, and what happens is 32.1 is actually slightly above freezing, so you actually won't get ice until you get the 32.0 or below, and anything at 32.1 to 32.4 actually gets rounded down to that temperature. So 33 right now in West Jefferson, 33 in Blowing Rock. Boone is checking in at 32, so we're starting to see some of that ice show up in areas around the mountains. Let me show you the Blowing Rock camera right now, and I've been watching this one carefully to see if we start to see some ice form on any of these power lines in downtown Blowing Rock. And I'm getting some reports that the roads are fine, but we're getting some icing on some railings, some decks, stuff like that. And that's what I would anticipate for most of the evening until we get closer to the morning. The ground's still pretty warm, so the soil temperature will help you out, but anything elevated or surrounded by air, like bridges and overpasses, certainly could freeze up pretty quickly. Let's go to Banner Elk real quickly and show you that camera, because it's hard to tell on this camera if this is ice or just rain, but it certainly looks like we're starting to get a little bit of glazing going on up in those locations. So let me show you the radar real quickly. We're going to go right to the mountains first, because this is where obviously we're starting to get some of that freezing rain to show up. And you can see it showing up on First Warn Doppler radar. This area in pink, oops, sorry about that. That's where you're starting to get some of that glazing showing up, and it's actually expanding quite a bit. At 6 o'clock I had a little bit on the eastern facing slopes, but now I'm seeing Banner Elk, I'm seeing Blowing Rock and Boone, and you kind of get the idea. It's generally here in the mountains where we're seeing the pink. Across the Piedmont, it's just a miserable cold rain, and if I loop this a couple of times, you can see the moisture is really increasing. Now, what you can't see in this image is that we've got cold air coming in from the northeast, which is starting to cool things down. Now, one of the unique things about the mountains, when you get a northeast or easterly wind hitting the mountains, that air gets lifted. And when the air gets lifted, the pressure decreases with altitude. When that pressure decreases and the air expands, it actually cools. So that is a net cooling effect. On top of that, the dew points are lowering, which when the dew points are low and you throw moisture into it, you get evaporative cooling. So there's two processes going on that are actually cooling the air. It's the evaporative cooling and what we call mechanical lift, that lift going on into the eastern facing slope. So you're seeing both of those things going on right now in the mountains, and that's going to continue into the overnight. In fact, I think the temperatures will continue to tumble as we get later into the overnight hours. So let me show you a little bit wider view to kind of show you what's still heading our way tonight. You can see all of this moisture down to the south, and you see a big amount of moisture over Georgia, and this is all going to move up here. Now, this is all snow and ice up in this area, but what you're seeing is that wedge of cool air wrapping around down in this area. So as long as that cold air is coming in, the mountains and foothills will still have the potential to see freezing rain, maybe a little bit of sleet, and at the very tail end there could be snow. I doubt we'll see much snow tonight, but I wouldn't be shocked that maybe some of the higher elevations, if we can get above that warm nose, there could be some snow. But this primarily looks like sleet or freezing wet rain, and a lot of that moisture still has to head up here tonight. Now, here's a quick look at those chances of seeing that 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation. I actually think we'll see probably easily a 1/4 inch of ice anywhere in blue. And I mean, it makes sense. That's where the winter storm warning is in effect, and that matches up pretty well. This is just kind of what we call cover yourself kind of thing. You're talking 1 to 5%, maybe 10%. That's not going to happen down there. Could we see a sleet pellet? Sure. And some of the brighter bands that come in, maybe the heavier precip, that could be a distinct possibility. But I really think this is what you're going to end up seeing across the area tonight through tomorrow. Cold rain for most of the Piedmont, and then that sleet, maybe ice rain mix ice in the mountains, and even there it's going to change back to rain. So let's get right to the futurecast, because this is really the story of the night. You see that precipitation moving in. I'll throw the temperatures up here in a second. You can see right around 2 o'clock in the morning, the thing you notice, we're at 28 degrees and 30 degrees up here. So that's likely going to be freezing rain or sleet. Down here, it's not exactly warm, but it's above the freezing mark, which is important because that means it's at least going to be liquid. But boy, is that a cold rain. And it gets really heavy around 4 or 5 in the morning. So the morning rush is going to be a mess. It's going to be miserably cold rain. And then you see some of the ice getting close to Morganton, Hickory, and Statesville. It's still above freezing, but I wouldn't be shocked the northern parts of Alexander, Iredell County, Wilkes County, Allegheny County, obviously Upper Burke and Caldwell, and then South Mountain State Park, those areas, northern Cleveland, southern Burke County will certainly have some ice. But watch what happens as we go through the morning. It stays ice, and then right around 8 o'clock, the temperature starts to go back up, and we'll likely see it come to an end at some point. That's why the winter storm warning expires at 1 p.m. because it likely will change to rain sometime around midday tomorrow. So we stop this at noon, and you can see the rain starting to move out, and temperatures have actually warmed up because what's happening is the warm air is winning out. We've shut off that northeast wind, so we no longer have the cold air supply. But then, on the back side of the system moves away, the winds are going to shift. They're going to start coming around to the northwest. That's going to push in cold air again, and you could see snow and cold air will be moving in from the northwest, so the mountains could actually see it change back to snow. I say back to snow because it probably may never be snow in the first place, but there will be snow at the tail end of this Thursday night. And then watch these temperatures in the mountains as we see the temperatures fall into the 20s. So all that rain, freezing rain, sleet, whatever falls tonight and tomorrow is going to refreeze up here with a dusting of snow on top of it. So the roads actually could be worse Friday morning than tomorrow morning, though the bridges could be icy in the morning tomorrow, and the power lines and trees will be most impacted tonight, tomorrow. The roads, actually more widespread road issues, might be Friday morning. So if you're wondering about schools in the mountains, I think you could have 2 days without classes, or at least delays at the very least. You see how cold it is into Friday morning. Now, rainfall-wise, this is a pretty substantial rainfall setup as well, just to show you the rainfall through tomorrow afternoon. Remember, we had anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of rain on Monday. Last 2 days, about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch, but you throw in another 1 to 2 inches here, and that's all it takes to bring these creeks and streams back, above flood stage, and we'll likely see some flooding from those. As far as how much ice in the mountains, I think it's going to vary. It's going to be isolated, and this will be one of those situations where somebody will get clobbered, maybe Boone or Jefferson, and maybe even parts of Burke and northern Alexander County, South Mountain State Park, but in between there could be areas that don't see any ice. So it's going to be really hit or miss. In just one county, some area could get a ton of ice and another could not. This is going to be very location specific because this is not a deep cold layer. This is definitely going to be kind of sporadic as far as overall impacts across our area. So once again, I'll go back to the radar just to show you the mess that's moving in. Make sure pets, kids, everyone's protected tonight, because one thing, this is cold. It's low 40s, mid 30s overnight with rain. When you have moisture and temperatures like this, hypothermia is a big issue. So please make sure your kids and your pets are well protected, have a sheltered location that's dry and warm, because this will be a miserable cold rain tonight with temperatures hovering basically in the mid 30s. Of course, we'll have complete updates. We've got crews in the mountains, and we've got crews stretched across the Charlotte area to cover the flooding coming up tonight at 11 on NBC Charlotte, and I'll be pushing out updates throughout the evening into tomorrow as the system moves through, kind of our first real taste of winter weather. And we'll show you the 10-day forecast at 11 where we look ahead to next week, which is Thanksgiving. I can't believe a week from tomorrow is Thanksgiving. We'll have that complete forecast coming up tonight at 11. I'll try to go back through the comments and answer any questions I can, and I'll post some updates with some maps and stuff so you guys can figure out what's going on where you are. But right now, just the FYI, we're starting to see that ice increase in the mountains. I can really see this is a 3-hour loop here. Watch how that pink starts to expand. So that's a good sign that the ice is starting to accumulate up there, and it's only going to get worse as we go into the morning hours. I'll see you tonight at 11, everybody.